Okay, part two of the first video this week. Let's go on to our other derivatives. The derivative for fenestrae is defenestrate. This is kind of a funny word, and it actually means to throw out a window. So if you lived in the medieval world, it was likely that you would defenestrate your food scraps. You would throw them out the window, and any passing chicken or pig would have a nice treat. So that's a bonus word if I've ever seen one. Defenestrate. Horticulture, as you can see, derives from hortus e, which means garden. Horticulture is the practice of gardening, the practice and the art of gardening. Nimbus is our derivative for nimbus e, and I'm sure you've heard of the scientific names for clouds, which are in Latin. Cumulonimbus. Cumulonimbus is one of them. Those are the big white puffy clouds. So nimbus is a word like aurora borealis that doesn't change its form really. It's brought right over into English in its Latin form, like forum or aurora borealis or nimbus. Vacca-a comes, a derivative for that is vaccine, and I'd have to look up the history of why we call a vaccine. I'd imagine it has something to do with cows, perhaps. Perhaps they were tested on cows first, different medicines and things like that. Maybe you can do a little research and let me know. Habitation is our derivative from habito, which means I live in, dwell, and a habitation, of course, is a place where someone lives, dwells. That's right. A habitat for an animal, a habitation for a human. Last but not least, a lavatory, or lavatory, depending on which pronunciation you prefer. I've heard both. A lavatory is a place where you do what, do you think? Where you wash. That's right, where you wash. You wash your hands, you wash up, maybe you wash your face. It's kind of formal language for a bathroom, what Americans call bathrooms, what Canadians call washrooms. We lived in Canada for some time, and they call bathrooms washrooms. And that makes sense, doesn't it? Because you actually wash in a bath, but you also wash your hands in a sink. So a bathroom is more perhaps properly called a washroom or a lavatory. Okay, there's our derivatives. You are now ready to go on and do exercises A and D. A and E. I think you could probably do D as well. Yes, you can do D as well. A, D, and E, because there's no new grammar required for D. So A is phrases and sayings. The first one we just talked about, number 1. And number 2 you can find on page 73 if you don't remember what thank you is in Latin. And then 3, 4, and 5 are past sayings from lessons we've already done. So that's exercise A. You can do that. D is translation. And here you'll need to draw a little bit on your memory from past lessons for some adjectives that we've done before, like meius aum or multus aum or tuus aum. And you'll also see verbs from today's lesson conjugated in the present tense. So you should be fine for those. For example, let's do number 1, D number 1, habitas, O-S-T, mustis und. So habitas is, habito is I dwell, or I live in. Habitas would be you live in, or you dwell. Okay, so that's what you need to do for these. And E, the derivatives we just talked about, So I'm sure you'll do fine on those 3 as well. And stay tuned for our second installment for a lesson on the new grammar, which is actually the future tense, which we talked a little bit about last week, but now we're connecting it to the stem of the verbs themselves, which I'm sure you'll do fine with. If you need a refresher on the future tense, do the disappearing ending technique and say it to yourself. See if you can get them all. Bo, bis, beat, bimus, bitis, bunt. That's the future tense that we learned last week, and you can practice that a little bit after you finish exercises A, D, and E. Valete discipuli, Christus resurrexit.